Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for January 28th, 2019. We'll begin with the appeals calendar, continued hearing items, item number 1, 10379BZ, and item number 2, 2017-144A. Both are for 2530 44th Street, Queens. This project will be adjourned to February 5th.
Correct.
Special order calendar, continued hearing items, item number 3, 6713A, 945 Zarega Avenue, the Bronx, and 6713A4, 945 Zarega Avenue, the Bronx. These two will be adjourned. I think it's March 19th. Yeah. Reopen hearing, item number 5, item number 5, 16-12BZ, 184 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, we needed to reopen this matter because the applicant's final submissions prior to the board's closing on October 30th were uncoordinated with different data in different locations. This application went through many hearings, and in particular, we struggled with the height, the proposed uses at the first floor, and open violations. The current submission now claims that the approved height was 49.05 feet, while my notes indicate the requested increase in height from the previously approved 37 feet in 2014 was 47 feet to the roof based on structural needs. The 47 feet to the roof is shown on plan sheets 1, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, last submitted on August 31st, and again on the same drawing submitted on September 24th, which was the last submission prior to the 9/27/18 hearing at which the case was reopened and then closed. The 9/27/18 submission was accompanied by a letter advising that some changes to the zoning chart to correct typos had been made, but that there were no other changes to the actual drawings. At that hearing, the applicant was instructed, and I listened to the video because I was very confused about what we received. At that hearing, the applicant was instructed only to remove the main elevator stop at the roof and reduce the height of the bulkhead. It was given the option of using the elevator in the storage room at the roof to service that room only, but not for passenger purposes. The instructions were to submit those changes and environmental notes, but no other changes were expected to be made to the drawings with that submission made on October 10th, 2018. Instead, and I am extremely disturbed about this, the October 10th, 18th submission drawings changed the height of the building to 49 feet, and all the floor elevations since the August 31st and the September 24th drawings without calling attention to the staff or the board about these changes. I note also that as a result of this height creep, there were ramifications in the boiler stack, et cetera, which affects the environmental. And those were not considered previously, so that underscores for me that the board never considered this additional height, and having listened to the hearings, I know we didn't consider that additional height. The handicap lift, and then there's things that are missing from that set of drawings. So I'm extremely disturbed. I don't know what to make of this evident, obvious change in the drawings. The handicap lift at the basement level is missing from the drawing, and the meat kitchen was enlarged without anyone telling us. The refrigerated trash area changed as well. The drawings that are submitted in connection with this application must be identical to the set that was submitted on August 31st, 2018, without access to the roof by elevator and a reduction in the height of the elevator bulkhead, and including all the required notes. The revised tech memo talks about playgrounds at heights that don't match any of the proposals. There are no playgrounds in this project. And I think it mentions that they took the playground out at the very last sentence after pages and pages of the tech memo. So what kind of an update on the tech memo is that? So that's not a coordinated submission. I'm furious about this, and I'm actually concerned about ramification. I expect the applicant's counsel to scour all of the documents and clarify the scope of the project as it was approved on October 30th. and as it should have been approved on October 30th, not as it was mistakenly based on drawings that we weren't aware had changed. In this case, I'm going to ask for the architect and the lawyer to sign an affidavit that none of the elements on the drawings that were submitted on August 31st have changed on the submitted drawings, with the exception of the things that change. So, for instance, the elimination of the elevator, stopping at the roof, and there were to be notes, environmental notes added to the drawings. And I want to know exactly what those notes say on an affidavit, and I want the architect to sign and seal it, and this is under penalty of perjury and enforcement by the Department of Investigation. I also didn't see the updated lease agreement for the bus parking in the file, which was discussed at the hearing at which the board voted. And I still see open ECB violations with penalties due and a defaulted January 2019 hearing date. So we need to clarify the status on these. All right, anybody else, any comments?
Continued hearing items, I'm sorry, may I
ahead.
go on? I apologize.
No.
Continued hearing items, item number 6, 86649BZ, 200-01, 47th Avenue, Queens.
Okay, as requested, the applicant amended the plan to show the location and detail of the trash enclosure. I'm okay with that, it's just that, and now it should be installed prior to our decision. We wanted to do that because it's been a very long time in processing this application, which has been adjourned many times and was submitted 2 years ago. And I think was late, also expired in 2015. Okay.
Item number 7, 64559BZ, 10824 Flatlands Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, we did get the community board recommendation who recommends approval. They provided photos showing the banner removed, light shield installed, and dumpster in the trash area. The photo reveals that the trash enclosure may not actually have a door on it, it's not clear, and that it's in serious need of a paint job and repair. So this is the problem of getting bits and pieces of photos. It needs to be respectable looking. Anybody else?
Item number 8, 62468BZ, 188-07/15, Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, photos were provided of 4 months' worth of little boxwood shrubs in shallow planter boxes still alive. So over 4 months, they're still alive. I'm not sure what to surmise from that. I think the idea of the planters was to make sidewalk display of goods inconvenient because those planter boxes actually sit on private property, but it borders the sidewalk, and that's why I think it was being abused for display. A photo was provided showing the shed removed, but the resulting open area is in need of repair. The concrete, the cement sidewalk is in really bad shape. No photo key was provided, so it's not really clear where the photo was taken. There's a wood fence adjacent, and I think it was the covered portion entered from 189th Street that was removed, which is adjacent to a residence. So now I'd like to understand, how is this area used? Can it be landscaped? Because it doesn't seem to really have any purpose, and that's bordering all of that northern boundary is adjacent to residences. They should paint the exterior walls behind the planters a uniform color because it's been the subject of graffiti repaint, so it's really just a patchwork of different colors of kind of white and grays. And the plans say there's a fence on that northern boundary, but then when you look at the property line, when you look at the Google imagery, there isn't a fence. So I'm trying to understand where the property line is at the northern border, northern boundary. Any other comments?
I recently did a site visit. The planters are doing well.
Speak up.
Sorry, I did a site visit last Friday, and the plants are doing well. I agree with you with regards to the uniform color. of the wall, excuse me, with regards to the storage space that was removed, the shed that was removed, as per the plan, it is to be used as an area to store dumpsters. And it would be picked up from the 189th Street. So if that is the plan, and it's supposed to have two gates, one fronting the street and the other on the interior side. So that's what, if you're okay with the location of the dumpsters, that's what the original plan was, it should revert back to that. And
But then, so it's adjacent to residential use, so,
unfortunately, that entire rear has, so it's either, and that's the only one that has the street access.
right, because the rest is a building,
Right.
yeah.
So that you don't believe there's any other way we can place the dumpsters not adjacent to the residential? Because the other, I think the other side you can,
The other side has a store that abuts the residential use, so it's almost like a little L. So, and one end of the L, that is on the parallel street to the, abuts the residential, and the rest of the uses along Northern Boulevard are the active uses with the stores, with the plumbers. So, and this is like the commons area where all the businesses, I believe, probably stored their dumpsters. I would like that clarification from the applicant,
Okay.
if that is the, and I mean, maybe you could push it a little bit to the interior, which faces the rear yard, but at the end of it, it's still going to be facing the rear yard. And the ceiling, the wall height abutting the residential, it's high. And there isn't enough space for landscaping either, and I was looking into
you
that.
don't think there's enough space for a line of trees on, like, up against that wall?
Why isn't there space? Why isn't there space for land? So,
The dumpster width,
yeah, over there is, it says it's 16 feet
so
wide.
it could be provided on the rest of it, but I don't know if there is enough along the dumpster area, because they need
Well,
that
16 feet and a dumpster needs 5 feet, right? So that's 10 feet to play with for planters, and you only need maybe 4 feet for the plant.
If it has to stay on the side that's abutting residential, I really think we should do as much as we can to limit the impact it has on those residential homes.
So the other thing, which is you wouldn't be able to tell from a site visit, is that there isn't a fence 8 feet away from the rear, from one of the buildings that faces onto Utopia. That, it seems to be kind of a shared yard where there isn't any demarcation. So it's a little bit hard to tell exactly where the property line is when you visit.
Okay.
And so that's part of it, and I'm not saying if they have an agreement with the residents above that because it's just a wall, and the resident above is okay with that being just a shared area without a fence, I'm okay with it, because what it does is it makes the neighbor's yard apparently larger, right? Because the neighbor's yard is only 4 feet, and the subject yard is 8 feet, but there's just a brick wall. So there's kind of no reason to have a fence if this subject property owner isn't using that 8 feet for storing their own stuff unprotected, right? So I think we need more clarification on that. But, okay, so, does it say dumpsters? Yeah, storage of dumpsters waiting to be collected, right. But they can also be stored, they don't have to be stored side by side, they can be stored the long way, so, because they're sliding in and sliding out. And you just need to be able to get in.
It seems like there's
to
enough
build them.
space to work something out here,
Right.
which would be to the benefit of the residents. And I agree with if the fence is going to be something to the detriment, we certainly don't want to add that.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Item number 9, 3191BZ, 173 Kingsland Avenue, Brooklyn. This case is being adjourned.
Yeah, so Mr. Duarte requested an adjournment due to an injury, so he's just not able to work now. He made a submission in August, which seems to be requesting a variance for the awning signage, whereas we had asked them to go back to the Department of Buildings and see, because there's so many awnings all over the city that have little bits of something that say the name of the restaurant. It doesn't look like that was ever done. So I'm not really sure how to go on this. We'll give him a lot of time for recovery, right? But we've had many adjournments, right? So this would be the fourth adjournment, and we actually, I believe we sent a letter to the owner that this was the fourth adjournment. Or the last adjournment, I believe we sent, it was the last.
So the application before us is for the extension of term and
Right.
to amend the previous plan.
Right.
Right.
And the only thing with regards to the awning, we never weighed in on the awning even in the previous one. It was pursuant to the underlying regulation.
Right, but
It's
it
not
doesn't
pursuant to the
comply.
special permit.
Right.
It just must comply.
So
No, this wasn't a special permit, this is a variance, right? So the argument that he's making is that the board never noticed it before or whatever, but it doesn't comply, right?
Right.
So he was specifically asking us to allow this awning, but it doesn't comply. So we would have to add a variance.
There is no underlying requirement that and this is a residential district. So it's not that it doesn't comply. There is no underlying sign regulation for the R district, so it is.
that's true.
I thought at the last date,
But normally, we defer to C1 regs, and this exceeds even C1, I believe.
But this, again, would be a discretionary decision by the board as to the sign wouldn't require an objection. So there'd really be nothing for DOB to opine on. It's just the C1 is at the discretion of the board.
So we could grant so here's a question. Could we then grant the extension with the condition that signage and awning to comply with the C1 regulation? And then
I think the problem is we did that before, and
Yeah.
then it's not an awning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't,
I'm sorry.
apparently it doesn't comply with C1, is what my recollection is.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
We talked
Yeah.
about it in
And
one.
I was just trying to clarify procedurally what's before us and how we...
Yeah, I mean, Jella's notes indicate that the applicant requested the original file and located the photo, and to locate the photos from 92, I think he raised this before, which shows the awning and the sign. The applicant indicates that DOB approved the signage and will provide approval when he gets back to his office. That's some note
Right.
from Jella, so. And also, they're revising their plans as per the FDNY. I don't know if that's happened.
So the issue is that awnings are treated differently than signs. Awnings have a much more limited size capacity under the C1 regulations. So in the discussion, I was saying, well, maybe it's not an awning, maybe it's a canopy. Canopies are differently regulated, right? And so that was the idea, to go to DOB and make an argument that this is C1, apply C1 as a canopy, and maybe that would work. But it doesn't sound like they ever tried. And that's the problem, because we could just say, comply with C1, and that's the end of it. It won't comply. Ultimately, they'll get a violation, and they'll have to take it down. Okay? But I kind of don't want to do that without the applicant's rep here. So let's just give them time.
Okay.
Okay.
Item number 10, 15900BZ, 383 3rd Avenue, Brooklyn.
they didn't give the turn change.
All right. Okay, Fire Department continues to have many objections and issued a new letter on January 19th that says, based on the department's inspection history at these premises, we urge the board to instruct the applicant to comply with the violation orders, there are many violations, and not to grant their request to eliminate the variance term. There's a photo provided that shows the refrigerated trash storage located in the cellar. It appears to be sealing off a room without access now. It seems like they blocked up the door and the window to a room, which I, in my very basic understanding of fire, understand that you can't have sealed-off rooms because that's where fires start, and then you can't get to them. So I'm hoping that's a mistake on the drawings. I commented at the last hearing that every time this architect changes his drawings, it raises another question that has to do with safety or legality. So the fire department is on this job, and this trash enclosure, it's a refrigerated trash container that they purchased, right, or they rented. And so it's actually installed. So since, if fire department could inspect, please. And the architect needs to amend the drawings to reflect the actual conditions in case the room isn't actually being sealed off. Perhaps it's not. And there was also a cage in front of the building that was removed, and they replaced it with a fence, so I think now it's more in compliance. And they say that that stair is a grandfathered condition, grandparented condition. Any other comment?
We took issue with this garbage plan is similar to the garbage plan they had initially, but they're still going up that step, the way I read it, and they're going through the school.
Yeah.
I thought they were taking it out through the side door and up the stair in the back, and then through the vestibule
They
around.
said they're going to go through the cafeteria when the school is closed, and then they'll go up the stairs and out to the street.
I thought
Yeah.
that we were more leaning towards what Commissioner Ciampa just said, the vestibule, and I find that was where the board was more comfortable, at least. And for a lot of different reasons, going through the cafeteria isn't the best way and up that step and around. And I'd just like to know why they chose this way instead. I was expecting to hear it going through the vestibule.
Okay. And they gave a little explanation. They'll only do this at night or after school hours.
this-
They'll drag the bags through the cafeteria, up the stairs, out to the street. They don't have a good relationship to the street no matter
Yeah,
which
no.
way you look at it, right? So,
And if the students aren't there, it shouldn't really make a difference how they monitor and manage their interior removal.
right. There's lots of messy things that happen in schools after hours, right?
I agree with you.
Okay.
Item number 11, 32205BZ, 6969 Main Street, Queens. There is an adjournment requested so they can file an amendment.
Yeah.
Item number 12, 9308BZ, 11316 Astoria Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, they did provide a timeline for completion of the project, which included updated progress photos. I thought the requested 36-month extension is reasonable based on their timeline and the reality that it takes longer to get a C of O than you always wished. They also submitted a copy of a notice to proceed from OER and the certificate of completion from DEC, so we know they did the right thing. Any other comments?
Nope.
Okay.
Item number 13, 24709BZ, 123 East 55th Street, Manhattan, receives a request to withdraw this application.
Right, and I just want to, so it's a request to withdraw. I just want to underscore for the applicant, and I hope the applicant's client, that withdrawal means surrender of the variance, which lapsed in June of 2018, and an entirely new application for variance will have to be made if the owner wants to pursue enlargements that are not as of right. So that's on the record that we advise the applicant of this. Okay.
New cases on the SOC calendar. Item number 14, 410-68BZ, 85-05 Astoria Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials. We do need the community board recommendation. I didn't find it anywhere in the file. But we do have the applicant's response to the community board meeting, so we know that they met. And the applicant agreed to certain terms, that the station will continue and agree as a condition of the term to provide full service to customers during normal business hours, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. Station operator has promised to keep the station free and clear of debris and graffiti. Cars awaiting service will be parked in assigned spaces in accordance with the site plan. No parking of cars on the sidewalk or on the street surrounding the site. That's impressive. The jockeying of cars will be made solely within the gas station site, and when necessary, utilize approved curb cuts in order to maintain pedestrian safety along the sidewalk. So that's representation by the applicant, so those can be conditions to approval. Fire department issued a letter of no objection. The site looks reasonably good, but the proposed existing landscaping is less than what is shown on the approved plans, and I don't know why that can't be provided. The use backs up on residential rear yards again, so that it should really be provided. Also, the Astoria Boulevard curb cut was widened to 40 feet. It was approved at 30, so they should discuss that. I don't know if it matters, but 40 feet's a very wide curb cut. The applicant should go over the differences between the approved and the proposed plans. This is just, trying to do comparisons, but it's very hard. We should be alerted to what the changes are. The plans need to include a landscaping plan and a lumen spread diagram. And I saw in recent satellite imagery, cars parked on the sidewalk. So I don't know if people on site visits saw that.
I didn't see it. However, I will say that the property across the street is the bus depot for the New York City Transit, and a lot of their employees park on the sidewalks. But I didn't see it on the subject abutting sidewalks. It was along the New York City Transit. So based on my site visit, I did not see any parked cars on the sidewalk. However, I did notice there were a lot more cars parked on the site for repair. So I think if they need to provide more parking spaces on the site, this is the time to revise it. I agree with you, the landscaping is less than what was approved. The trash enclosure condition is a little bit in poor condition, that needs to be improved. There was a lot of garbage actually and various material stored in the rear of the property and in some of the designated parking spaces. So if those are cleared up, maybe more parking spaces can be made available for their own purposes. And the other one is that the no parking sign that is there along the sidewalk, it's now faded, so it would be great if they can update that.
I want to add that on the side that abuts the residential, there is a vacuum and a air pump that I didn't see in the prior plans.
I thought I did.
And if we can avoid, and then that's why I think there's more cars on that side, is to use that air pump and the vacuum. I think that if we can move that to not on the side of a residential line, I think that would be best.
I believe it might be tough to relocate it, but I noticed this as well, and I believe if they just elevate the wall, the fence, if you look at the fence, it steps down during the last probably 20 feet. If they complete that part to raise the wall, I believe that could serve as a cushion.
So they should increase the height of the wall
Yes,
at that lower
yes.
part.
Actually, it's like
pretty
completed. The wall goes like this and then steps down for the final 20 feet. So if they just build that portion.
It's actually a high wall. It's a very, it's a solid wall with, I think, a fence on top of it.
So
if I seem
it's
to
not,
remember.
it's not like this.
It is like this, stepping down.
It is, okay, that part is stepping down.
Yeah,
but
that's
the rest
what he's
of it-
saying.
That's what I'm
Okay,
talking about. If
that's
they
the
just
part.
complete this
Okay,
part.
yeah.
Now,
You're
they
right.
may have lowered that for visibility for
Right,
cars.
That's for visibility when you're
Yeah.
pulling out.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, probably. The other thing I noticed actually is I looked at the previously approved and the proposed, and I did notice, I'm not sure about this, but I believe there is like a change in the location and orientation of the USTs, the underground storage tanks. I'm not sure if you noticed this as well, or?
Well,
I could
Okay.
notice it from site visits.
Yeah, you can't see
From the side visit, you can.
From the plan.
But if you look at the two plans, they shift
Yes, there is.
and
Yes.
they are rotated. So
Right.
did they do any like relocations for these tanks?
Right, that's a good point.
And if so, then we need to see sign-offs.
Yep,
from- right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
One more thing, there was also a discrepancy with the amount of signage. Sorry. Thanks. Apparently, they decreased the amount of signage, but the plans show more signage, so if they could just explain.
It'd be helpful if they break it out by frontage on the
Yeah.
signage analysis form, so we can follow along.
Right, ready? Item number 15, 10370BZ, 203 East 74th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application and of notice of hearings to officials. Community Board initially recommended denial, 22, with 22 in favor, 15 opposed, in favor of denial, 15 opposed, and 1 abstention for failure to appear at the hearing in in October 2017. At a subsequent meeting in March 2018, the board voted unanimously to deny, stating that the transferable development rights will facilitate a development that exceeds the maximum height the community board has proposed for the district of 210 feet. Apparently, there's a proposal to change the zoning in this area. We have one letter in support. We have a letter of objection from Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts directed to Department of Buildings Commissioner Chandler, discussing concerns they have about the future of the existing buildings on the zoning lot. To my knowledge, these are not located in an historic district, nor are they individual landmarks, so I don't know that there's anything that concerns us here. The issue before us is whether 203 East 74th Street would enjoy a windfall if it were permitted to transfer its development rights to the development site. I think that they have demonstrated that the proposal passes the Bella Vista test. Since the variance was granted in the early 1970s, before development rights transfers were common practice, and when the practice was much more complicated. Also, receiving sites were very small, with regulated, rent-regulated tenants. So unless combined into a single zoning lot, they weren't viable development sites. And the practice of buying out rent-regulated tenants really wasn't common back in those days. Now it's done every minute. They're also seeking to legalize as-built conditions that are contrary to the 1972 amended approvals. I didn't find in the record information about the first variance other than the resolution that provides no detail. So I'd like to know whether the entire file was obtained and whether they copied everything that was in the file to give to us. The applicant argues that the as-built essentially complies with the initial variance, but I don't know upon what they based that statement if they don't have the file. The 1972 plans show 3 units on floors 1 through 7, or 21 units, with 3 mezzanine duplex apartments at the 7th floor, although the provided financials from that time indicate 27 units with 3 mezzanine floors, with a different per-floor unit count. There is no retail. None of the materials provided show a BSA approval stamp, but the receipt dates on the floor plans conform to the 1972 resolution. So it's really that's just my summary of what they're asking to modify and whether or not that taps into the original approval in some way.
And just to clarify that, years ago, they would approve the stamp on the back of a plan. So it
Right,
wouldn't always be
yeah.
on the front, so as long as the dates coordinate with the resolution dates.
Yeah.
We could assume those are the correct ones.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else on this one?
Someone will be here from Friends of the,
They will, that's
Yeah.
what we wanted. Okay.
Item number 16, 40-80BZ, 3541 and 3941 West 23rd and 20-22 West 24th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application and of notice of hearing to officials. The community board provided a very carefully written analysis of the history and recommends approval. While the sale of 24,000 square feet of development rights in 2005 certainly is a boon to the property owner, I think the materials and the facts support the assertion that such a sale would never have been contemplated at the time of the variance in 1980, when development rights sales for commercial floor area was virtually non-existent. There was no possibility of development rights being used for residential use in the area, and the city was in a sorry state of decline. The sale occurred 25 years after the variance, so is clearly distinguishable from the facts in Bella Vista. They also seek legalization of the 754 square foot rooftop enlargement made without BSA approvals. This application, like the prior one, reflects an unfortunate condition where DOB is often uninformed about BSA and city planning actions on properties. Just for the public's information, we are seeking to remedy this situation going forward and eventually to include clear indication of BSA actions on all affected properties, but it will be slow going. While I'm not sure that the addition of 734 square feet would have implicated the 1980 findings, I believe a portion of the addition was constructed after the zoning lot merger. And so I don't know whether that necessitated a new waiver. In any event, it increases the degree of noncompliance as to the rear yard, I believe. I'm not quite understanding how DOB would have approved that. And so the applicant should provide DOB-approved drawings. I'm just not really getting how they could have obstructed the rear yard and DOB, unless it was a self-certified application, which it well could have been. The drawings provided need to be updated to reflect the existing conditions at the subject site. Only a rooftop addition diagram was provided. The drawings need to be identical to the set that was approved back in the 1980s. And then the last thing is, because this is a historic district, and was explained to us in the materials that some of the floor area transfer that occurred on the site, on the development site, is subject to a landmarks special permit, 74-711 special permit. I reached out to the Landmarks Commission to see.
City Planning Commission.
No, it's a 74-711 Landmarks Commission, that's why I'm saying it. Special permit, which ultimately is approved by city planning, but only pursuant to approvals by landmarks. So I reached out to the Landmarks Commission because the way that those approvals are issued is the applicant has to represent that it will restore the landmark building and then enter into a perpetual continuing maintenance program. And I looked at the building, and there's no work that was done on the transferor, right, which is the building that should have had the work done to meet landmarks approvals. So the Landmarks Commission stated that there's requirements for updates on some of these approvals. However, they are okay with our deciding on this as long as we condition our approval on the completion of the renovation plan by a certain date, which they're going to clarify whether that's TCO or a permanent CO, but not permit. So we'll get a little bit more on that.
I just want, can I? Yes, go ahead. So what was interesting is that there were two rounds of additions that was made. One round of addition that was made to the penthouse was when the certificate of occupancy did refer that the project was under BSA purview. So which to me was surprising, that even though the note clearly referred to it, DOB granted that addition without referring to BSA. The second one, yes, there was none, and it was granted. So I'm just curious how that happened. With regards to the the fact that there was a special permit that was granted by the City Planning Commission with regards to 74-711. My question is, there was a 2018 modification that was made. So we just want we want those approved plans in our files so that the zoning the zoning calculations that was approved should be consistent with the air rights and all the other requirements that is being requested and should be reflected in our amended set of plans. Because there is.
So you're saying the CPC approved plan?
Yes, well, CPC approved, right, unless city council modified it. I doubt it.
No.
Whatever is the latest approved and recorded plan.
Right, okay.
So I just wanted to add that additional proof of the non-marketability of the commercial development rights at the time is actually found in their financial, where they talk about, they actually list a whole lot of floor-through vacancies in all of the buildings that are surrounding the site, and that actually provides proof that nobody would add development rights if they can't even fill their own existing spaces.
And I think all the abutting buildings, they still today have excess floor area, unused floor area. So for them to want to purchase that floor area for commercial purpose, and these abutting buildings are commercial uses. So as you said, there isn't a commercial market to buy.
No, there is a commercial
No,
market
there was then.
today.
No,
Then,
then.
now. Yeah,
Then.
yeah, right.
That there was not a commercial market then
Right.
to buy that additional floor area when they had already excess unused floor
Right,
area
you're
on their
right.
site.
Yes, exactly, right. Today, they buy it for hotels.
Right.
So,
Thank you for correcting.
okay.
Move on.
Okay.
Item number 17, 49883BZ, 2131 Highland Boulevard, Staten Island.
Okay. Sorry, just one second. Okay, this was postponed before. We read and discussed our comments at the review session on October 10th, but this hearing was postponed. A revised statement of facts was submitted on January 23, and additional argument was submitted on January 8th, which included a ZRD1. The ZRD1 confirms that no additional parking is required for the rebuilding of the structure under 64-721, and that both the pre- and post-61 parking provided was voluntary and not required, and that the proposed addition is 15,280 square feet, for which 51 accessory parking spaces are required. Therefore, no additional waiver need be sought with the current application. And just to clarify a little bit, and Carl, feel free to jump in, the rebuilding is under 64-721, which is not the non-conforming section, it's the non-complying section, right? And we're only being asked to look at parking that sits on the R section, right? So we're not being asked to look at conformance. We have a non-complying structure as to parking. Okay. So therefore, the construction in the C81 is as of right, and the 51 parking spaces in the R district are now required, but are 5 spaces less than the 56 spaces approved to be located in the R district in 1984-85. The resolution should make clear that the BSA is not opining on the compliance of the new buildings, on the new buildings' compliance with zoning. Okay. And I just want to clarify, we do have the parking, the floor area calculations from sort of the 3 generations of drawings, which includes the current calculations and the calculations from 1985. So you can actually follow along and see how the parking, how they arrived at the parking, even though it wasn't required at the time. And I'm actually curious how the applicant concluded that 15,208 square feet was something that was susceptible to parking regulations, because there was also existing residential that didn't require parking at the time. So you could argue that you grandparent that out too, but it doesn't really matter because 52 spaces are enough. Okay. Anybody else?
Move on? Item number 18, 1059-84BZ, 94361 Kings Highway, also known as 2032 Coney Island Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials, but I found no notice of hearing in the folder. We can't have a hearing unless we have a notice of hearing. Community Board recommends approval. The fire department submitted a strong letter of objection, to which applicant responded on January 23rd. So the fire department will review those materials, but I'm not sure that it's going to change their opinion of their concerns. I'd like to know what the acoustical measures are to protect the adjoining tenants that are located adjacent to the new spin studio and beneath the strength and cardio areas. There are retail tenants, and knowing about spin studios and how they vibrate your brains. If it's not a box within a box, I'd like to know how they're handling that. And also, they changed something to massage rooms, so we need the licenses for the massage therapists. Anybody else?
I'd like to know how long the cycle room has been in this condition. I know it's been operating. I think that would shed some light as to see if this is a nuisance on the neighbors. I'd just like to get some information about that. If this has been going on for a number of years or months.
Right.
Right.
I also believe their time to obtain a C of O is expired. They need to amend their application to include a waiver and extension of time.
They've been alerted that
Yes, they've
both
been
actions have to be sought and the requisite fees are required.
Fees, right. Move on?
Yeah, hold on a second. Okay, let me know. Okay.
Item number 19, 813-87BZ, 110 Boren Place, Brooklyn.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application and of notice of hearing to officials. The community board waived its review, but issued a favorable letter. Fire department issued a letter of no objection, noting that summons were issued, but that we could proceed with this. The applicant is requesting modification of their hours of operation. The current, so it was approved at 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily, and currently the days and hours are Monday to Thursday, 5:30 to 11 p.m., 5:30 to 10 p.m. on Friday, and 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. They've been operating like that for 3 years or 2.5 years or something like that. According to the BSA resolution, the second floor of the subject building is residential. No C of O was provided showing this information. They gave us a TCO that was only partial. A 2000 C of O indicates there are 10 apartments on the second floor, so they need to provide notice to neighbors at the next hearing. Notice to neighbors for the next hearing, and we will hear this again. Anybody else?
Notice to neighbors, okay. Okay. Appeals calendar, continued hearing items, item number 20, 215, 15A, 14414, 181st Street, Queens. We need to wait for DEP. There was a revision, there was a miscommunication project. They were no longer doing the sewer easement as it was not viable, and so it went back to DEP.
Okay, so...
DEP has to re-review it.
Right, so, and we still don't have a community board recommendation. We've been waiting and waiting, and we still don't have it. We need it.
Okay.
So I just want to add, though, this application has been at the agency since 2015. And its application was not ready to be calendared until June of 2018, when we had the first and only hearing on this. So I really don't think we should let this linger here much longer. I don't really understand the reason that the property owner can't seem to come to a conclusion, but I just don't think we should have it here. I mean, and we're bordering on 4 years. So, filed. Yeah.
Item number 21, 2017-323A, 108 Croke Avenue, Staten Island.
So the applicant requested another adjournment. This is the second, and there was also a postponed hearing, so we're not going to give too much more opportunity for adjournment. I'd say this is the second, the next one would be the last.
New cases, item number 22, 2018-97A, 50 Storrs Avenue, Staten Island.
We have proof of service of initial application and of notice of hearing to officials. Community Board recommends approval. Fire Department issued a letter of no objection as of January 26. The Borough President issued a street status letter explaining which of the streets are, have opinions of dedication and which don't. DEP signed off on this in October, and those were my only observations. They're not even comments. Anybody else?
I'd like to know what, I wasn't very clear on what the purpose of the building's going to be. I know they're garages, I'm not sure what kind of work is being done there. It's on the same block as a school, so I just want to get some more insight. And now, I will acknowledge that there's a lot of mixed types of uses on this block. I just want to know what we're adding to that.
It is as of right, though.
Yeah,
The use is as of right, it's an M1 district.
right.
Right.
If anything, the school,
The school-
Shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
or it shouldn't be there, but it is because we probably,
Right.
hopefully, they came to us.
Ready?
Yeah.
Zoning calendar, item number 20, continued hearing items, item number 23, 17-15BZ, 133 Beach, 5th Street, Queens. There is an adjournment.
Yes, request. So, it's a request to adjourn. We've been in hearings for over a year and exactly 3 years since the initial submission on this. The February hearing was administratively adjourned. At the May hearing, we asked for materials we didn't receive at the August hearing, so an incomplete submission. We need to move this case along, so although we can grant this adjournment, it will be the last. So,
Letter to.
letter, yeah, so council to send letter, yeah. Our council.
Yes.
Item number 24, 8715BZ, 182 Minna Street, Brooklyn. I think this has been adjourned, withdrawn.
No, withdrawn.
Withdrawn, sorry,
Yeah.
withdrawn. Okay. Item number 25, 15715BZ, 3925 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, it's similarly, sorry. Yeah. So the applicant has requested an adjournment as the property was sold in November. This will be the 5th adjournment and the last. And at this point, it doesn't really matter that it's a new owner. After the June hearing, BSA counsel sent the prior owner a dismissal warning letter. We have been in hearings for a year and a half and at the agency for 3.5 years. The next hearing will be the last. All comments made in the prior hearings. So the next hearing will be the last hearing.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not going to have any more back and forth or anything. All comments made in the prior hearings need to be responded to. The last time we saw drawings on this, we stated that the requested FAR is too much and cannot exceed 1. We instructed that the second floor be pulled back to 30 feet. The existing drawings need to be clear about existing legal conditions as shown on the 1992 plans and floor area calculations. And revisions to the project must comply with these instructions and no discussion. We're not going to hear any more debates about this. It either looks like that, or I'm going to close and ask for a vote, all right?
Item number 26, 2016-4127BZ, 1547 East 26th Street, Brooklyn.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Demolition drawings were provided showing that 50% of the existing exterior walls will be retained on the exterior, as will 50% of the existing joists. So you see, it's possible to do it with every project, no matter where it's located on the lot. A note should be added to the plans, removal of existing exterior walls and joists in excess of that shown on the plans will void the special permit. Since the last hearing in June, floor area came down to .81 from .84. The rear yard incursion remains at 23 feet for 2 stories. The building height to the peak of 32 feet 2 inches, which is actually an increase from the prior 2 submissions that were 30 feet. The existing building is 30'7". I don't actually see the purpose of the additional height, which reads out of context with the front and rear elevations, and unnecessary on the side elevations, except to say that the hip portion, which is what's causing that, this little hip, is pulled back approximately 10 feet from the second floor facades. This distance needs to be dimensioned, it isn't. And the front yard was further reduced from 17 feet to 16 feet. So there were still increases in the massing in spite of reduction in floor area. We discussed at the last several hearings that you can't use the R7A characteristics to justify the massing of this house, which continues to be a strong part of the argument in the statement of facts. While the revised massing is still an aggressive takeover of the existing house, and the floor plate is large compared to its neighbors shown in the figure ground studies, the required amount of existing walls is being maintained, and the FAR request is reasonable. I think a case has been made to support the reduction of the front yard to 16 feet, but I don't think a case has been made for a 23-foot rear yard at the second floor. All of the residential neighbors surrounding the house, with the exception of the multiple dwelling, which is in the R7A, have complying rear yards. The site plan makes this very clear. So I think it needs to be pulled back at least to 25 feet, but it really should be more. Other comments? No?
Okay. Item number 27, 2017-8BZ, 362 East 139th Street, the Bronx. We received fire department, so the only thing they're waiting for is the DEP sign-off on noise impacts of rooftop play area on nearby receptors, and the promised date is the 1st of
So,
February.
and I didn't find plans that respond to the fire department access, roof access objections. So
Oh.
that's, I didn't, maybe they were submitted since,
No, apparently they're not submitted.
Okay.
Oh, okay. He's waiting for a submission of the plans, I'm sorry. So we told him we could,
Just to clarify, fire
Sorry,
department.
fire department's waiting for submission of those
yeah.
plans.
So there's been a lot of back and forth with this. It seems like the most efficient way to do this, because every time the architect makes a change, they submit, they don't seem to understand what it is the fire department isn't liking about the drawings, so they make a change, the fire department says he still didn't respond to my question. So I think really we should have the architect's office speak to Chief Daly's office and find out how it's going to work, like have a meeting with them or something, because this is, I think it's already the 3rd or 4th revision of the drawings with respect to the roof and the fencing and how you access the roof.
ESA plan from the new.
Okay, so the fire department's saying that the plans have been revised to show rooftop access. They're just waiting to submit and being approved,
Sorry, this is a review session.
and
It's just
being
for the-
approved, but the
Yes.
fire department, they're waiting for revised BSA plans. That's all.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, so let's do this
We'll do this at a
tomorrow at the hearing.
tomorrow.
Right,
well-
because we need the applicant asked not to
No,
come, right?
Right, and so we're going to give them till February 12th?
Well, so the applicant's rep is here all the time, so we can have this conversation with them at the hearing tomorrow, right? Just so we make clear what needs to be done, because we're not supposed to be doing this at a.
No,
review
I
session.
know, but we told them they didn't have to come.
No, but you don't have to have you can have the applicant's rep come and relay the information, right?
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 28, 2017-33BZ, 398 Leavenworth Avenue, Staten Island.
Lenavar.
Lenavar, sorry. Lenavar.
Okay. At the last hearing, we stated that we had problems with the A finding because the subject lot is held in common ownership with the neighbor. Hence, the site is 86 feet wide by 97 to 133 feet deep, and not 46 to 18 feet wide by 133 feet deep, because it varies, right? The submission argues that the two lots need not be considered a single zoning lot under the zoning resolution. I totally agree. But that isn't the question. The issue is whether the lots are held in common and whether the owner has the option to use these two lots to cure its hardship. The several provisions in the zoning resolution that allow substandard zoning lots to be developed if they were held separately and individually from all adjoining lots by a certain date specifically addresses this reality. An owner of a substandard lot generally does not suffer a hardship if it also owns the adjacent lot because it can comply with the current zoning regulations. It's only a hardship if both lots, when combined, still are substandard. And we see that occasionally in variance cases.
He does try to make that argument that when combined, they're substandard, at least.
He doesn't
No,
make
he
that
doesn't.
argument.
He makes the argument that he would never be able to combine it to develop it because there's an existing house, and so therefore that standard shouldn't apply to him. But it doesn't say that it's a requirement that they be developed together. It's just that the possibility exists. Whether or not you exploit that possibility, it's on you.
Your choice, right.
Yeah.
You want to add an extra bedroom, you want a swimming pool, that's it's your business
Right,
what
or
you
if
do with your
want to
lot.
demo the house and build two in its place.
Right,
It's
they're
all
called-
up to you. You have the options.
Right, and they're called tear downs for a reason. Lots of people buy, we work on them, right? Lots of people buy several lots in a row, tear down X number of houses on the row, and replace it with a new house. So, and you could argue, each one of those little lots individually is suffering a hardship, but it creates this enormous, fantastic lot when you tear down all those houses. Okay, also, the new submission argues that a new building on the lot would be too small because it would, on the combined lot, would be too small because it would have to comply with too many side, front, and rear yard regulations. But the proposal appears to be incorrect on two fronts. One, the side yard that is perpendicular to Lenevard need only be 5 to 8 feet wide, not 20, while the side yard perpendicular to Drumgoole would be the side yard that's 20 feet wide, which is the typical way you approach a corner lot, right? And that 20-foot wide side yard overlaps with the 20-foot required arterial front yard depth. So we often have that kind of overlapping side front. The proposal also doesn't take advantage of existing non-complying conditions of the existing house, which has an 8-foot side yard. So even if the first interpretation were incorrect, you always get to take advantage of an existing non-complying condition and sort of build off of that. Right? In addition, I'm not 100% sure that the lot line parallel to Lenevard is a rear yard line, since, in part, it is within 100 feet of a corner. That's kind of a DOB interpretation. I don't know the answer to that. A variance is intended to relieve property owners of the hardship imposed by their unique lots, not to respond to owner development preferences or to maximize return on investment. So I still don't see an A finding.
I don't either.
Okay. Okay,
Move on.
yeah.
Item number 29, 2018-107BZ, 1441 South Avenue, Staten Island.
We have a fire department letter of no objection. I'm trying to understand the school schedule versus the room schedule, which is what we asked them to talk about at the last hearing. Is it true that children have 2 periods of math and English per day? And do I understand correctly that students in the high school move to the math or English room so that there are no homerooms? That it seems like everyone's moving around to these specific rooms. I'm trying to understand whether that's the case. The schedule hasn't worked out which classes are in which movement and music rooms at what time. Only that the rooms appear to be occupied most of the time. In other words, that schedule isn't really that helpful, because it doesn't say which grades are in which rooms at which time for how long, and then that way you can conclude that all the rooms are being used. I see that the plans now show a barrier and hedges along the edges of the loading dock, where I expressed extreme concern about its proximity to the school's entrance. In understanding the site plan better now, because they gave us a much better site plan, I see that all access to the school will be from Teleport Drive. This includes school bus drop-offs, faculty, and parent drop-offs. This is the identical route for trucks accessing the loading dock for the entire building. So all I see is conflict among these uses at the absolute worst place. The trucks need to drive past the buses, past the children being dropped off in order to go into the loading dock. They provided a section, building section, that gives the impression that there's a major level separation between the uses, between the loading dock and the plaza. But that doesn't accurately represent that at the point of the truck's entry to the loading dock, it's at the same grade as the crosswalks, as the children walking on the street. And children who take the so there's also a lot of children, it says, are going to be coming by public transportation. So there's 2 buses that do this loop around the teleport. So I didn't understand from the bus map where that bus stop is, if it's stopping on the office side of the building, the other entrance, or whether it actually swings in front of the school, because they could easily change the route to drop in front of the school, which would then add another layer of conflict if it was a city bus doing that, 2 different city bus routes. I also didn't see additional information on the coordination of the 7 buses among the schools, because they said they're going to be using 7 yellow buses to pick up from these different schools. And it sort of doesn't make sense, because the buses travel a long distance, and so it seems to me it would take 30 minutes or even 40 minutes, 45 minutes to come back. So they say there's a departure of the lower school at 2:33 and an arrival of the high school, or the vocational school really, at 3:25 to 3:55 with the same 7 buses. I just don't see how you're doing that in a 20-minute interval. School safety at DOT also expressed concerns about the location and wants to see circulation and access plans. At the same time, understanding that the site is on private property. So I would want to see that too, because it doesn't really matter, it's on private property, you've got a public bus system working this. And I'm concerned to begin with at DOT's concern, which makes me more concerned. And was this the one that they just sent a review on, or that was the other school? You sent something this morning, Tracy. It was a different school, okay.
It was a different school this morning.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then I have more question. How does the loading dock load its supplies into the elevator? Is it into the service elevators 1 and 2, which it must be, that are accessed also by students? So it's accessed by students as their sole method of getting ADA access to the schools. The upper floors show access to the service elevator lobby controlled by a receptionist. So how can you do that with disabled children that they can't, or teach staff, that they have to ask the receptionist every time they go into the elevator to be buzzed in? And that's the same elevator that's being used to transport supplies that are being delivered from the loading dock. So the short answer is you need to have a devoted elevator for this school. You can't be using your service elevator. Plus, service elevators, as we know, get pretty horrible looking. You know, they fill with trash. That's what you use them for, right? They fill with perishables. Even if this is an office building, you have perishables. So you're putting students in potentially very disagreeable kind of an elevator. I don't think it's been worked out. Also, The doors to Stair B and Stair B lobby need office use only and panic door hardware designation. They gave us a really good, say, door control plan to show how all of the different kinds of control systems will eliminate adults, or strange adults from meeting kids. And also the P1 to P3 elevator doors, are they sealed on the school floors? Is it locked? So, because if you can pass by those elevators as long as the elevators can't stop on the floors. But if they stop on the floors, then the doors to those elevator lobbies have to be closed. So, and then I just need to verify that the tech memo requiring window wall attenuation is okay, that it's 25 dBA on 3 of the walls and 31 dBA on the west wall. So just to make sure that that's correct, because that's what they're showing on the drawing. Okay. Any other?
I had a question with it seems like there's going to be adult children with the youngest children at the school in the same time, at the same place, and I'd like to get into that. If there's another way to rework the schedule around, so the adult children, the adults and not children.
So are you talking about high schoolers, or are you talking about the people who are over 16, right?
Over 16, who are going to be at the same, using the same facility, same floor as the younger children. And I'm not comfortable with that. I'd like to know if they have a plan, what their plan is to separate these two groups.
Okay. Anybody else?
They actually gave me an answer to one of my questions, which had to do with the size of the classrooms. In the programmatic needs statement, they went into detail about how the classrooms are larger than the classes that are going to be in there because they want to use the part of the classroom for breakout sessions so they can have simultaneous different types of learning going on. So I thought that was acceptable to me.
Yeah, and they showed the seating plan, that you have sort of standard classroom and then those tables that come apart.
Right.
Yeah.
I was satisfied with the programmatic need statement that was provided, which clarified questions, especially the 3 programs and how they differentiate. With regards to the separation of the truck loading and the buses, while I hear your concern, I think it would be best if the applicant can clarify what the scheduling hours of the loading bays and bays are, and the school drop-off pickup, and how much of friction there is in that process. Physical separation-wise, I think what they're proposing to me would work. So it's the question of the operation and the hours of the uses.
Right. So this is, I'm super sensitized to this subject based on that other project we had in Brooklyn, where you can't restrict the hours of delivery because trucks arrive when they arrive, simply because there's traffic. They're dispatched from wherever they're dispatched, in whatever part of the country they're dispatched, and then they arrive when they can, and they load when they can, and you can't restrict it. And our experience with that other school was that the landlord was unwilling to restrict the hours because it wasn't possible. And that whole building also, if I remember, was an office building, so it wasn't exactly that they were moving manufacturing goods, and therefore it deals with a different kind of delivery program. But we see that just living in New York, that loading docks are active all day long, and if they're union buildings, which this probably is, then they must deliver between certain hours that are union hours, right? That stops basically at exactly the same time as school stops, because union hour stops at 3:30 or 4. So it's exactly when students are arriving. For example, we just see that some are arriving at 3:30. So the loading docks, you need to get all those loads in, or removals. Sometimes it's removals, it depends on what they're doing upstairs, right? It could be an office building that has, where they're producing something where they load onto the loading dock also. So, anyway, so it can't, I don't find the concept of them restricting the loading dock hours viable. So instead, it's how are they going to manage not just the loading, but for now, I'm also really concerned about the elevator. I don't think that what they've done with the elevator works at all. So they need a devoted elevator. Okay.
One.
Uh-huh.
New cases on the zoning calendar. Item number 1, 2018-38 BZ, 1717 Richmond Road, Staten Island.
Okay. We have proof of service of the initial application to officials and a notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends approval with 8 in favor and 7 opposed, so that was tight. But it doesn't look like it was the full board because it's only 15 people, so it might have just been land use. I actually, just to begin, need clarity on the block and lot of the subject site and of the site that will share the parking lot. The statement of facts states that the subject is Lot 7 on Block 887, and the parking is provided for Lot 41, but the various site plans and maps provided show, according to the currently available digital tax map, that it includes, that the subject sites include current lots 7, 3, 43, and 41. The 2017 RP 604, which they provided to us, doesn't reflect the merger of lots 3 and 43 into lot 41. So something's not up to date. Certainly, Department of Finance doesn't agree with the statements in the record. So with respect to access, access of the queuing line for the drive-up, I thought it's quite odd to be driving through the parking lot to access the line, that it will create conflict with cars coming to park for the retail. And I thought that the access should be more direct. I see why they're doing it, to avoid a second curb cut, but I don't think it works. And if that is the route to the queuing line, then why is the project site, which they're sort of isolating something they call the project site, but you drive off the project site in order to get onto the queuing line, so that all has to be part of the plan. And we should also see the entire site's landscaping plan. They're not showing it because it's off the project site, but it's all part of the same use, right, related use. On the sound level dispersion plan, I'm a little confused by it. It doesn't seem to be taking into account the impact on sound level from the menu board of the sound reflecting off of the retaining wall and the slope. It's hard to believe that there would actually be 58 decibels that are located 21 feet from the menu board, when first the menu board, the sound smashes into a very high retaining wall, and if it didn't do that, then it's into a slope that's very vertical. This is a commercial strip, and the use on the site was formerly a gas station, so it reflects substantial orientation to vehicle use, which is one of the findings we have to make. With respect to buffering from adjacent residential uses, as I said, there's a huge retaining wall and extremely steep, and I'm interested in Commissioner Sheta's response, extremely unstable-looking slope separating them. I'm not sure that additional landscaping along the retaining wall, on the project side of the retaining wall, would have much effect other than aesthetic from Richmond Road in terms of sound buffering. But that retaining wall is very unsightly, so one way of, let's say, buffering the visuals would be to have landscaping on this project side of the retaining wall. I don't believe DOT is, they did a traffic study, which I don't think was submitted to DOT, and it needs to be, because obviously Richmond Road is really busy, there will be a lot of traffic, and even if the gas station had similar traffic, maybe there's an opportunity to ameliorate whatever the issues were. And I'm just reminding everyone, this is a maximum permitted term of 5 years for this case. Any other comments?
With regards to the site, I think we should be reviewing it as a zoning lot, even though the project site may be a subset of the zoning lot. We should have in our files the entire zoning lot and what is being proposed and where, and demarcate within that zoning lot the area where the special permit is being applied. This would go towards answering Chair's question with regards to the landscaping, sound attenuation, and the entire traffic circulation. I agree the access way to the drive-through is, I'm not sure how successful it will be, because I can see somebody driving straight through the entryway and joining the queue without going to the end of the line. And that can create confusion within the vehicles that are trying to circulate. So I would definitely need a better understanding of the circulation plan and how the sound and the landscaping would improve that. And that should be part of the entire plan submission, even though what we are reviewing for the drive-through is for a subset of the plan.
I'm not sure it's a subset. At the moment, the queuing is going all the way to the end of the site, so it's not a subset.
So then it should be the entire zoning lot.
Yes,
Then it
right.
should be the entire zoning lot.
Right. Any other?
Yeah, regarding the retaining wall thing, I wasn't able to comment on this because we don't have any geotechnical information.
Right.
However, and this is especially for Staten Island, I have seen during the past year, I have seen some scary retaining walls / slopes that I believe great attention need to be paid off to these retaining walls and slopes. So I urge whoever is reviewing the structural stability of these kind of walls and slopes to ask for a detailed analysis based on real geotech reports and done by specialized geotechnical / structural engineers, because the consequence of one of these walls or slopes moving is really bad. So
You can,
Isn't
Yeah.
it in, hasn't it been constructed already?
so the reason that I'm saying this is, and it's not our purview really, we're only looking at a drive-through, right? But I'm looking at the photographs, and then I go on satellite imagery, and I see that they've had slides. And you see the two buildings that are residential buildings up there on posts that, and from which the terrain has slid away, right? So they're now very exposed. And then the applicant, who may or may not know really about the retaining wall, describes the retaining wall as 1 foot thick. And I'm like, I really hope it's not 1 foot thick. Because that's more or less like me holding it up until I run out of energy.
And the difference, I usually being challenged by this response, isn't it standing? Didn't they finish constructing? Yes. Isn't it standing?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. But my response to this, and I have responded to this once, and in a month, something big happened. And I recall a retaining wall moved, and after it did move, actually, they told me that it did move an inch, and I said, I don't believe it's an inch. And the following day, they told me that it did move 18 inches. And I said, you remember now, it was constructed and it was standing. And I usually say the difference between a completed structure, well-standing structure, and a collapsed structure, it's just this. That's it.
Yes.
Before it toppled, it's standing, it's beautiful, and immediately after that,
Not standing.
it's ruined. So, and these things are not jokes.
No.
They are really dangerous. And the reason that these structures are not well engineered, because engineering, like sound engineering for a structure like this is really costly. And developers might not be willing to pay for that. And the other option is to just put a structure, submit, and if the guy who's looking at this is not really experienced, or the guy who did the analysis is not willing to be careful and do the right thing,
Right.
like I said, the consequence is not good.
Right. So this is Starbucks, right? And I don't know if Starbucks is a franchise system or whether it's a chain, but they could certainly afford to hire real serious structural engineers and to reinforce the retaining wall. It's kind of a terrifying look, that's all, but it's not that we have any domain over this. It's just hard to look at. It looks a little bit like California right before the mudslides.
The nice game with Staten Island, again, is this. If somebody's coming to the board with a variance, he would claim that, look, I have this kind of rock, it's very hard. Like the application that came to us, and he's claiming that this is serpentine rock, it's very hard to dig. Serpentine rock, by definition, is one of the soft rocks. It is classified as this. So if somebody's claiming that, yeah, this is a hard rock, we have a retaining wall, he's claiming that we need to do nothing. It could stand by itself. But on the other extreme, if somebody's coming claiming hardship based on the subsurface conditions, based on that rock is very soft, I can like do well with it, it's gonna cost me money to, then this guy is not really designing a tiny wall. He should be designing, it's up to the developer and the applicant engineer. The way he wanna tweak it is the way that's gonna benefit his application. So in an application like this, yes, it's just 12-inch thick wall. The height, I don't know, maybe the height is more than 12 feet, and it's going up. I don't see any like tiebacks put to the wall, and it's a standing. And if you don't have data, you cannot, if I do have data on something like that, I would look at it, volunteer to look at it, do the analysis and raise the red flag if needed. But if I don't have data.
Right, well, and we're not going to ask for data, it's not our
Yeah,
subject
of
here.
course, yes.
We're alerting with lots of red flags.
So
the
on some
property
applications, they volunteer to get you the data, and then you look at it and say, you know what, I looked at this data, although we're not required to review, but just be careful because you have this issue and that issue.
Right.
But here, we don't have that.
Okay, I think our concerns have been expressed, that's all we can do. Okay, moving on.
I want to stress with the parking lot again, it seems that this is both an in and out from this one lot, and it seems that this is the only in and out for this,
Yeah.
and that seems like it's going to be difficult with deliveries coming in through this in and out. And the only other thing is, I didn't see a trash storage. I don't know where that's going to be. I assume they're going to put it on the back near the retaining wall, but I didn't see it in the plans.
It actually has to comply with the underlying zoning requirements with the trash enclosure. I don't remember the section. But
Has
it's
to be
a
50 feet.
specific requirement for the distances from streets.
From the curb.
But they don't have 50 feet, or do they? Is it deep enough? I don't even know. if
It's
they-
not, then it
93,
has
it's
to be
95.
stored inside.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But there is a section that,
But we usually see the trash enclosures on the drawings for this. You know, we often see them in some corner someplace. So I don't know if it's on this drawing.
there is a section, I'm sorry, that
Yeah,
gives
no,
specific instruction to the,
But we usually see it on the drawings, so then we don't have to ask, where is it? And I don't know if it's on the drawings.
The only reason
Okay.
I want to stress the issue with the curb cut and this being in and out, is that this is a very heavily used block. The street's very heavily used, and I imagine that this is going to have a significant amount of business, being a Starbucks in Staten Island. So I want to make sure they have the best flow to
Yeah.
get in and out of that.
Well, that's one reason that DOT should be looking at the traffic study, even though it's not a seeker issue, it's a traffic issue that really needs to be looked
and
at.
the special permit
Right.
permits the board
Yes.
at its discretion to estimate.
And I think as part of the environmental analysis, the applicant is proposing some modification to the signal timing changes at some of the intersections of Richmond and I forget some of the streets. So definitely DOT needs to look at it to ensure that, it won't trigger anything.
Right, yeah, okay. I mean, I think that should just be a basic rule. When we get a traffic study, it should always go to DOT, whether or not it's a seeker question, because those are the people who know how to review the details on that. Okay.
I do have one additional question. I would like to know why the applicant chose this particular curb cut to access the entire site. The curb cut could have been located in the mid-block, even if it's a one-way kind of one entry point, to kind of provide for ease, better circulation for both the uses rather than being only from one side.
When it was a gas station, if my memory serves me correctly, it did have multiple curb cuts.
Right,
Right.
right.
Well, they
And
stated
the
they
applic-
didn't want the multiple curb
Exactly.
cuts. So I understand why they would want to reduce the number of curb cuts, but not if it doesn't work, right?
Relocated where it works for, that's really my question.
Okay.
Item number 2, 2018-109 BC, 9-03, 44th Road, Queens.
Okay. We have proof of service of the initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends approval as finding the site is 200 feet from an R district. There are reports from real estate agents indicating the absence of affordable sites. As I understand it, the school isn't able to make the capital investment for new construction, so needed a build-out by the owner. They should clarify this, as the real estate reports indicated that there were properties of suitable size and development potential for sale. So it seems like the reports are a little bit at odds with this. And they excluded from the study locations in buildings that have Cs of O for manufacturing use. And I don't understand why that was excluded from the search. The statement of facts incorrectly states that the subject site is as of right. They need to fix that, page 6. Also, 80,000 square feet was apparently the search criteria given to the real estate agents, but the program chart in Exhibit 7 shows a need for 32,000 square feet at year 8. So I'm not understanding that huge discrepancy in program requirements. A description of the school program doesn't account for the number of students in each grade and scheduled use of classrooms to ascertain the need for 80,000 square feet. It's the same issue. Floor plans don't show grade allocations. There is a teacher's description of a typical day for a lower class, school class, which I thought was very helpful. I'd like to understand the current status of construction because the owner has a permit for a 3-story building.
It is right now 3 stories,
Yeah, so,
or 2.5, I think. The ground floor is there, the second floor, third floor is under construction.
okay, so if they could provide construction status photos. The building is in an AE11 flood zone, so normally we would require a ZRD1, CCD1 for this. Did DOB already look at those questions? They need to provide us a copy of the approved plans. I didn't find any mention of this in the approved ZD1 that I found online. And the ZD1 and the Schedule A actually don't match. The ZD1 says it's a 3-story building, and the Schedule A says it's an 8-story building. So that Schedule A may have been associated with the filing to come here, but sort of a disconnect between what's online for the project under construction. Right. I'd like them to verify it's permissible, probably from a fire safety and DOB and buildings department regulations, that it's permissible to walk through a 6-story convenient stair landing that has doors to access a classroom. So they have a convenient stair that connects within the school, plus fire stairs, separate fire stairs. And to get to one set of classrooms that runs throughout the 6 stories, you have to walk through, you open a door, you're on the stair landing, you open another door, you're in the classroom. And it seems to me people would be using that inconvenience. They're sort of in emergency situations, confused, that they're running vertically. So they need to show elevations as in heights on the roof, and clarify the differences in roof height for the gym portion versus the classrooms, because it's actually the gym is 20 foot high and the classrooms are 10, and so there's a variation on the roof heights, which is not shown in the plan on the roof. Clarify also if there's a play area on the roof. There's labeling on the roof that's confusing. It actually says play area, mechanical room. Statement of fact says there is no play area on the roof, but the drawings don't seem to support that. They need to provide a plan showing security controls to separate adults in the commercial portion of the building from children and vice versa at the stairs and elevators. And then one of my favorite pet peeves, at least they're very open about it, the finished material on the elevation is labeled stucco, but they provided detail showing exterior facade insulation system. So they need to change the exterior finish material to one that is attractive and durable. EFIS is not an acceptable material. I don't think we heard from DOT with respect to school safety, but DOT had a lot of concerns about this project that they just sent to us a letter this morning. So those need to be responded to about the traffic study. And then DEP also requires a Phase 2 and a HASP. And I'm just not sure whether DEP was aware that excavation and foundation work is already in place.
Right, we have since updated them, and they said if the shell of the building is enclosed, that would make the Phase 2 testing indoor and outdoor air testing instead of like in the ground. But if it's not enclosed, you can't do that yet.
Right.
So we're still working on what, they might just need an update of the construction status to figure out what to do next.
And what about the DEC spill report?
I believe they've submitted all of the necessary documents for the remediation regarding the spill. But DEP usually asks for more than what's the spill on sites like.
Okay.
And DEP also had comments on noise and air quality.
Yeah.
But we do have WRP waterfront and LPC archaeological sign-off.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else on this?
I would definitely say that this is, I know why the community supported it. There is a tremendous need for school in this neighborhood, and given everything that one hears in the news in Long Island City, I think real estate is very difficult to purchase, and given that there are active manufacturing uses, which are generally in this area 1 story or so high, and the rest are mix of M1s and Rs, which mostly MU, there is M zones, and then there are the Hunters Point South Special District, which are almost not possible for someone to purchase given the high real estate value. So I do kind of understand their real estate search and why they had to be there. And this is the closest that one gets to the residential uses, the Queens Plaza, the Queens housing, and also the new development that is happening to the south of it with the Hunters Point South and Long Island City.
Sorry, what do you mean about Queens Housing? They're building the Queens Housing?
No,
or-
the NYCHA housing, that is there to the north. And this site is kind of sandwiched between the the NYCHA housing that is to the north, and then the whole new Hunters Point South development that is already halfway done and remaining being built. And the city has a plan to rezone the 44th Drive to allow for more high-density residential and commercial uses that will bring in more residential uses. So the market is extremely rich right now, and so I can understand the difficulty in finding an ideal site for a school within the residential districts.
One of my notes was, I was stating that I didn't see anything that addressed 7319A, but where they seeking alternative sites. But if that's, I may have missed it. If
No,
that
they
was-
did,
They
they
have an
provided,
addendum to it where they list actually several addresses
yeah.
and why they weren't
Oh, great.
suitable.
yeah. They had 2 reports from real estate agents. They had 2 separate real estate agent reports. And my comment was that the agents were looking for 80,000 square feet, but that their program seems to say they only need like 35,000. So what was it the agents were looking for? And then the other thing the agents were told not to look for was manufacturing buildings, where we see so many schools and manufacturing buildings. They're actually ideal for schools, and it's not exactly like this school doesn't have environmental concerns, so it couldn't have been that they were concerned about environmental hazards, right? So I don't understand why that would have been precluded.
Well, isn't the
Because
site
it would've-
search is in an as-of-right district?
Yeah.
So they probably are looking at buildings that are not industrial, because the finding says you have to look for sites
That
that
are as of
where a
right.
As of
school
right.
In a
could be
district where
located
the
as
use is
of right.
permitted.
No,
Yeah.
but so I think what the issue, that it's mischaracterized in their letters. They say, can't show us manufacturing buildings, or buildings with Cs of O for manufacturing use, but we know that there are manufacturing buildings in residence districts. So probably, they need to correct that, they might have meant, can't show sites in manufacturing districts, which is what they showed them, by the way.
You're right back
Here
at
we
the
are.
same place.
Right, so it might have just been misstated, and so they need to clarify that.
Right.
Okay. Move on? Yeah.
Item number 3, 2018-116 BZ, 1982 Utica Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, we have proof of service of the initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. The community board recommends conditional approval, but it's not possible to read the conditions since we received a PDF of an active document, so we need the complete report. You know, we can't really function they have these little scroll down things that sometimes work and sometimes don't. That one I couldn't get it to work. We have one letter in support. Fire department issued a letter of no objection. There is a BSA resolution history chart indicating general compliance with the terms of the 2002 grant, but the statement of facts admits that there is car washing and 24/7 store hours when car washing was prohibited as a condition to grant, and that store hours were to be limited to 5:30 a.m. to 12 a.m. So I question compliance with the other conditions, and this is yet another example of someone giving us a compliance chart that they sign and seal or whatever, and they didn't actually check compliance.
Another part of the compliance was that no beer will be sold, and there is a
Right.
sign that says beer
Oh.
sold.
But just a procedural reminder that this is an entirely new special permit, under 73-211.
Granted.
Yes, but,
Granted, but then if they're saying that the compliance is being met,
Yeah.
yes,
then the documents that have been provided definitely do not support that. And then the statement of fact should be very clear on which parts they are not and which are the ones that they're seeking corrections to.
right.
And that, to me, was a little bit misleading and confusing.
Yes, and this happens a lot. And I don't know how to make this more, I mean, these are compliance charts that are supposed to be signed and sealed, right? Which are rarely signed and sealed, by the way. And it's a statement that you're making where you're attesting to the truth, right? And then you don't even check the data, none of it. And it's so easy to check. We just checked it, right? And then you make a statement like that. So that's, what's the word for that when you don't do that? Okay. The plans show landscaping was supposed to have been provided at the intersection of Avenue L and Utica also, and wasn't. And the light lumen spread diagram shows spill onto the residential properties, all of these conditions to the approval, not supposed to spill, not all supposed to have landscaping, et cetera. So how is it complying? All right. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Wait,
I was
go-
going to say, there are actually 2 car washing stations, and they're both on the residential lot
Right.
line. And actually, when I went there was a guy washing his car
Yeah.
right there on the residential lot, so.
Though the applicant said that, they have a drain within their site to capture that,
They're not supposed to have it at all.
they're not
It's a
supposed to have it
condition
at
of
all.
approval.
I agree with you. This, based on the site visit, I also noticed, there was one car that had been washed, was being, cleaned up, and the other one was in the process. And I think every Google Street View that you see, you will see a car there being washed. So it's a very popular one, that's for sure. But if that is the case, then it has to be located in a different location away from the residential area. And
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, it was the car wash, that was one thing, and the other thing is the wall, the fence next to the car wash on the residential property line. It's a brick wall, and then on top of that, there is like another, it could be a PVC fence. I just want to make sure that this wall is structurally intact. So they need to check it and get a statement from an engineer saying that they looked at it and it's fine.
Okay.
All righty, item number 4, 2018-118 BZ, 710 Avenue W, Brooklyn.
We have proof of service of the initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends approval with 1 opposed and 1 abstention. The demo drawing is inaccurate that was provided in that it doesn't distinguish exterior walls to be maintained on the exterior at the first floor, so it needs to be corrected. And just a note to our council, demo drawings were submitted separate from the main set. They will need to be combined into one set. It nonetheless looks like this is a rear yard plus third floor addition with no change to the side yard width, so that it's likely that there isn't a lot of removal of existing material. This is a semi-detached house that even shares a stoop with its attached neighbor, yet the submission ignores the neighbor's existence, pretends that it's not even there. As with our other applications to enlarge such semi-detached houses, the submission must include elevations, sections, and roof plan that show the entire structure, since the design of the enlargement must be integrated into the whole. The immediately adjoining neighbor has a 20-foot rear yard, but we don't know to what height. All of the other neighbors have complying rear yards. The applicant needs to justify the impact on these neighbors of a 20-foot rear yard to the third floor. 49% lot coverage is standard for the area, and the site achieves this with a 10-foot side yard. No height studies were provided. The project is relying very much for all of its arguments on the 2013 BSA approval of the house attached to this one, and that has an atypically shallow rear yard and perhaps atypical height at 35 feet, although no data was provided on this topic. 35, so there needs to be more support for this in data. Anybody else?
Item number 5, 2018-144 BZ, 551 Madison Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Notice of hearing was posted in the window, I think, of the studio. It's kind of not clear where it was posted. I'd like them to clarify where this actually is on the street. Community Board waived its review. We have DOI. We have a letter of no objection from Fire Department. The floor plan labeling indicates it is on the ground floor, while the title block indicates third floor. Yeah, so you need to just eliminate one of the title blocks, which is the one that says it's on the ground floor. They need to provide a partial first floor plan indicating location of access from the street and fire route to the street, because we don't know how you get out. Anybody else?
I wasn't sure if this is a legalization or.
Oh, yes, it's a legalization opened in October. Okay. Yeah, because the sign is actually there, and you can look through the window and see the use,
right.
right? I just couldn't tell, if the use is on the upper floor, then how is that advising the neighbors? That's part I don't understand.
Do their plans indicate a equipment layout?
There is no, so I did a Google search trying to understand what EMS, there's a special program, they use an EMS technology, so I was trying to understand what EMS technology is. So it's like a suit that you wear with sensors.
And then, does it do like micro, like
Yes.
shocks or something?
That I don't know whether it does
No.
the shock, but it's testing every muscle of your body to see how much every piece of your muscle has been exercised.
But you're still using weights.
You're
It's
using-
light weights and things like
Right,
that.
lightweights, and it's kind of like aerobics type of thing. I didn't see any machines, at least when I did the Google search of the facility.
So maybe there aren't.
I don't know. I don't know if it's this facility or not. But so.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Item number 6, 2018-8-8BZ, 1820 Cropsey Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. We have proof of service of initial application to officials and proof of service of notice of hearing. The Community Board recommends conditional approval with one abstention, saying that no spray paint booths shall be used on the premises. And, yeah, so there are 6 letters of opposition citing fumes from spray painting. We have fire department letter of no objection. They did provide us something that showed that the spray booth was removed. I'm not sure that continuous use since 2003 has been established. There's photos that skip to 2007, then to 2012, and nothing clear since 2013. However, there are leases from 2000 to 2016 showing permitted use as a commercial fuel oil business. I'm not sure, as was stated in the notice of comments, how this use is the same as the BSA permitted use. It seems like it's been operating as this fuel oil storage delivery company for a very long time, and somehow that's being interpreted as what says on the C of O, garage for trucks, motor vehicle repair shop, body and fender work, incidental painting and spraying, office and locker room offices.
Which now it is working as.
Ah,
Because if you go to the site,
Right.
they're actually working in conjunction with the Subaru dealership across the street
oh,
and are parking cars on the sidewalk without plates that belong to the dealer.
Yes.
great.
On Cropsey Avenue, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think the application is kind of a mess.
Right, because the impact of being used as that fuel oil corp, isn't that a discontinuation
Right.
of the original use for several years, which they're providing proof of via pictures and leases and electrical corp invoices.
Right. Well, the electrical corp was to remove the spray booth.
Ah.
And I don't understand why you have a spray booth
In a fuel.
in a
oil.
fuel.
Right.
Right, and also, it said that the fuel dispensers, the gas dispensers, were for the exclusive use of the landlord, not for the tenant of those leases from 2000 to 2016. I don't understand that either. And
As I was reviewing the documents, I found it very confusing to understand what is the current operation of the site and how much of the prior approvals with regards to the mezzanines and everything is being used or is going to be retained. The informations were not.
They also asking for an amendment to legalize the spaces?
Well, but we don't know what spaces are being asked to be legalized for what use. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't very clear to me what is before us, because when you look at the plan and what the statement, it's a little bit all over.
Okay.
And I also did see cars parked on the sidewalk when I visited the site.
Yeah, so they never mention that there's a change in use. As far as I was concerned, this Petro is considered continuing to operate there.
Maybe the nature of operation has changed. Maybe the business is still there, the nature of operation, but
Petro
I'm just-
delivers oil to
Yeah.
people's houses,
I know.
right?
I'm just giving the benefit
Right.
of the doubt.
Right,
Yeah.
and the original variance was for a repair shop.
Right.
for Cars.
Right, right.
So if they abandon the use, then it's a whole new variance, right?
Or, this is a pre-61, so
Yeah.
if the use could be contemplated, if it's a change in use, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what it is, but if it's a change in use, then the request would have to come pursuant to 11-413, if it's permissible.
No, so let's just
Yeah, I'm sorry.
start again. So they got approval for motor vehicle repair shop, basically, right? Which kept being extended, right? They've had extensions in 1993, extension where they were supposed to enlarge it, decided not to enlarge it, et cetera, right? So it's been maintained always under that use here. But it expired, the approval expired in 2003. So they had to establish continuity of the approved use. It seems like it hasn't been used since at least 2000 as an approved use. So we always talk about continuity. It doesn't sound like there was continuity. It was not an auto repair shop. So doesn't that mean they've
Abandoned their
abandoned the
variance.
variance?
I'm not sure without
Okay,
knowing
so we
more
need to figure
detail.
out-
It's a big question because a lot's riding on it. I'm just not sure. I guess they would have to look at and brief the matter
Yeah.
as to the discontinuation and the possibility if 11-413, and again, I throw that out there because that would have to be the only option if the board accepts continuous use, that the change would have to come pursuant to 11-413.
But it-
Again, I don't know
So
enough
far-
And
facts
then
to
it
say.
changed back.
Yeah.
it is
That's
or it's
the
not.
other issue, is after it became the Fuel Oil Corp., it now has appeared to have changed back.
I would need more information. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that the applicant really has to be very forthright about and dig into how to address this because, yeah. I don't know. Okay.
Okay, item number 7, 2018-16 BZ, 974 Sackett Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials, but there is a mix-up in the file on the notice of hearing, so there is no, it's notice of hearing for somebody else, so there isn't proof of notice of hearing. So we can't have a hearing unless we have proof. We also need the community board recommendation. So, and they need to prove continuous use since the expiration of the term in 2002. Water bills provided don't refer to the business, so I don't see how that works. The Schedule E isn't clear that the garage was rented continuously and only goes back to 2007. The Schedule E is their IRS filing.
Right.
So I also don't see that. It seems like maybe there's no telephone on site, or maybe the Con Ed bill wasn't to the tenant, which is quite unusual, but they need better proof. The concrete block knee wall and chain link fence is in very bad condition and needs to be replaced. The sidewalk is cracked, it also needs to be replaced where it's cracked. And there's an open portion of the lot, how is that being used?
Just doing the Google Street View and the aerial, it seems like that open portion is being used for gardening, more like very
Maybe,
programmed gardening. So we definitely need photos of that interior open space, and I agree with you with regards to the continuity and the fence conditions. And there's a barbed wire that needs to be removed.
Okay.
Item number 8, 2017-222 BZ, 200-01, 116th Avenue, Queens.
Okay, we have proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors, but I don't find proof of service of initial application to officials, and there's also no community board recommendation, so I don't know if we have. Proof of hearing I do have, notice of hearing we have, but no proof of initial service or a community board recommendation.
There was a cover letter.
We'll double check when we.
Yeah,
Double
yeah,
check
but,
that.
you know, if you see a cover letter and there's nothing behind it, there's no proof.
I'll check it again.
With respect to uniqueness, the map doesn't show it, but I believe the 1,200-foot radius chart indicates there is only one other vacant lot in the study area. I actually went on Zola and tried to check it myself, and I think that was the case, but the map doesn't show it. With respect to common ownership, interestingly, the Veterans Administration owned both properties, adjacent properties, and conveyed to different people, one in 1976, the other in 1986. And perhaps that was the VA method of issuing a mortgage, like a deed in lieu of foreclosure or something. But, so maybe that wasn't the same as common ownership. But the records provided don't go back to 1961 like they need to, except there was a New York City foreclosure on the subject site in 1984 and a sale in 1994 to an owner other than the owner of the adjacent property. So the city broke the chain if there was a common chain. They need to clarify the requested yard waiver. The statement of facts is confused about whether a garage is a permitted obstruction and which waiver is needed to allow it. 23-441 specifically permits garages and side yards of corner lots. So I don't know what the issue is, but the statement of facts is kind of wandering around this issue without articulating. This is an R3A district in which 0 lot line 1 and 2 family residences are permitted. So ordinarily, only one side yard would be required. However, here, 23-461C precludes this 0 lot line option since the adjoining residence is less than 8 feet from its property line, and that's what the other requirement, you need 8 feet between the buildings. So I note the depth of the front yard on 116th Street is aligning as required with the adjacent lot pursuant to 23-45B. Such alignment isn't required of the other front yard under 23-45C1. Front yard planting requirements of 23-451 are calculated and comply. The request here is for a 20-foot wide home, but the statement of facts states that the range in the area is 16 to 24 feet, so a narrower home would also be feasible in the area. However,
I thought they were requesting like 22 feet and change.
22, really? I
Now
thought it's 20 feet.
It is? It's 20 feet wide?
I don't know, okay, check.
Can you check? 'Cause I
Yeah,
can't get my
okay, yeah,
file
yeah.
to open.
Sorry,
I'm
The
trying.
vacant lot has 25-foot frontage.
No, the
Or
home.
Building.
The building. So he's got a front yard of 3 foot something and a side yard of 1, so, sorry.
Is this the only providing one side yard?
There's a front yard of,
12.8 feet, right?
yeah, but that's that's the long side, the short side that makes the building narrow. It's a 3 foot 7 inch front yard and 1 foot 5 inch side yard, so I think you're right. So 3, 4, it's like a 5 foot something total side yards. Total yard width
Let's see what it says.
against,
So the proposed width of the property is
the
20 feet,
building.
of the building is 20 feet by 40 feet.
so it is 20.
Oh, I don't know.
How is
why I
it
thought I
20 by
saw
40?
23.
It is
like
23.7.
Yeah, it's 23.7.
No,
And
but then
here
it
it
says
says 20 feet.
Okay, that's why I
That's-
got confused too.
so what is it?
I don't know.
It-
I thought it's 20, but it
It's
says
20, but the reason,
23.7.
23.7 is including the yard.
Yes.
So I think the way it's measuring, it's 20 plus 3 foot 6 inches, the front yard, and that's the 23 foot 7. So that was a little confusing, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
And
okay,
20
and-
feet is
right.
the width of the building, with a 1 foot 4 inch side yard on 1 foot, 1 foot 4 inches side yard on one side.
No,
and-
it's the front yard. Oh, that's a side yard, yeah.
Side yard, and then 3 foot 6 front yard along 200th Street.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, right, which makes sense because it's a 25-foot wide lot.
I think
Okay.
it's shown here as 3.6, and here it's shown as 3.7 inches, so.
No, it's not
It's
3.7.
3
So
foot 7 inches.
So
which
here's
is
the thing.
3.6.
So here's the one instruction that's an absolute must.
We should be
Everything has to be in feet and inches, not in decimal points sometimes, and feet and
Right.
inches some other
Right.
times. It's
Which
all
this
over the place,
corresponds.
both on the drawings and in the statement of facts.
This
Right.
corresponds, it's 20 plus 3 foot 7
That-
inches.
Right.
And I believe the dimensions need to be corrected because they are not consistent. Even if you
Yeah.
look at the 23.7 inches, if you look at the ends of that dimension, it's from the property line to the property line. If you add up the 1 foot 5 inches plus the 9.9 plus the 13.10, or you add up the 20 feet 0 inches plus 3.6, which is 3.7, they don't add up because there is
I agree with you, I think the labelings is off and it's confusing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's in part because if you switch between decimals and feet and inches, you're going to mess up.
3.6 is 3 feet 7 inches,
Yeah.
more or less.
Yeah. So, okay. All right, so, anyway, so what I wanted to say that, the statement of facts, states that there's a range of typical house types of 16 to 24 feet. They're saying they have a 20-foot wide home. There's leeway in there if we wanted to increase the size of the side yards and so on. But the statement of facts itself doesn't pick up on an argument that it should have that's provided in the data, which is that although the standard front yard depth is greater than 12 feet, at the corner lots shown in the 200-foot radius diagram, and granted that's only a few corner lots, the long dimension of the corners always has a front yard measuring somewhere around 3 foot 9, 3 feet, 2 feet, and even less. So, and that's the size that they want to reduce, right? So it's not like 12 feet's your standard yard everywhere. So I think actually this is a very good and respectful project where all the findings are made and the scale of the building is completely consistent with neighborhood character. And it's also very well presented with good detail in the arguments and in the drawings, except for the dimensional issues.
I found the size of the home to be quite large, actually. And
Really?
it felt to me like it was being driven by the fact that they want a two-family here. And while they do say that their study, their 1,200-foot radius study shows that there are many two-family homes, if you confine that to the 400-foot radius, there are only 10 two-family homes, and the rest are all one-family homes. And the size of 2,920 square feet is much larger than everything around it. In fact, there are only 31 homes in the 1,200-foot radius that are over 2,000 square feet, and 30 of them are actually in the R5B district, and only one of them is in the R4-1 district.
Wait a second. I'm seeing, maybe we're reading and maybe it's more confusing than I'm saying, but I'm finding a 1,737 square foot house.
Right,
Two-family.
this is 2,920 square feet. That's almost twice the max FAR.
Okay, something's confused here.
If you go to the the whole lot study that they have.
Yeah.
Which is, it would be great if they
No,
could total
they submitted a
stuff up.
revised proposed plan, which is a two-story detached, two-family of approximately 1,737 square feet
Oh.
of floor area.
All
And they
right, well then-
eliminated the FAR waiver.
Yes.
They're proposing one enclosed parking garage, one front yard on 116th Avenue, 12-foot wide.
When did that submission come through? Because
That was
I
the
was in, I
last submission.
was in the initial folder,
No,
sorry.
There was an August 8th submission, which had
So
the-
why isn't the latest stuff folded into the initial hearing folder?
agree with you.
So that
Well-
this way I could see the most recent
Yes,
things.
I
and
agree
then,
with
of course,
you.
this changes everything that I'm
Yes,
saying, because
correct.
1,700 or 1,900 square feet is certainly within
Right.
reason.
Yes.
So all I can do, because I do this all the time, but all I can do is beg that we get all of the folders organized in a way where the commissioners know what the last submission is. I have to say that because I'm not seeing that consistently, I open everything. And I
usually
start
do.
from the end, and I look at the last
I
one.
usually do that, but
do.
I was in a rush this
Yes,
week. And so
right.
when one is in a rush, they can't always do everything they usually do.
Right. So because actually, when you start from the end and you read it, you'll see that the statement of fact says, we revised the application to request fewer things, and I don't know in response to what, because it hadn't been a hearing. So I didn't really care what the application was before because it had never been in hearing, but I was aware that it had been a bigger building, right? And so it was only because I read last first, but that, I agree with you, it's incredibly frustrating. I wish we could be sure, this is us speaking to staff, that we get the hearing folders organized in the same way on all the applications, with the most recent in the application folder.
This was done, and there was some kind of glitch, and then we realized it, and I raised it to Daryl, and he recreated the folder. So, I don't know what happened.
It must have been that I caught it right before it was revised.
No, it wasn't, no, I reviewed it also. It was not in that final method. So I had the same thing.
No, I know that
Just
it was.
lots and lots
it
of
was on the hearing
folders.
folder, and then something happened, and then it was not done when I went back to look at, when we were looking for hearing notices and stuff. It wasn't done, but I knew it had been done before.
Okay.
So I then alerted Daryl that it was not. Something happened, so that he went back and recreated it.
Okay.
So just to go back, we are okay with the,
Yeah, so, well, and
Then,
Commissioner Ollie-
yes, then I'm fine.
Yeah, right, okay.
Okay.
This, that's it, right? Wait. Make sure, that's number 8, right? That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So this concludes the review session for January 28, 2019.
Sorry. It is frustrating.
Yeah.
I